Welcome everyone. Today I'll be solving question 50 of the 2022 GATE Biotechnology paper. And the question is that you have to find out which of the following plots is or are correct for an enzyme which obeys Michaelis-Menten kinetics. And you have to assume that the substrate concentration is much less than the Michaelis constant. Here S is the concentration of the substrate, Km is the Michaelis constant, and V0 is the initial reaction velocity. So let's see what the options given to us are. So there are 4 options given to you in the form of graphs. And the first 3 graphs are graphs which plot initial reaction velocity V0 against S, which is the substrate concentration. And the final graph is a graph plotted for substrate concentration versus time. So let's see or refresh our memories and see what the Michaelis-Menten equation is before we see what the answers are. So what you see on your screen is the Michaelis-Menten equation, which gives you a relation between the velocity, the Vmax, Km, and S. Here, Vmax is the maximum velocity that a reaction can reach, Km is the Michaelis constant, and S is the substrate. So the reaction is or the equation is such that velocity is equal to Vmax into S by Km plus S. And this can be written in the form of the graph that you can see on the screen, which is a graph plotting rate versus concentration. So as you can see, as the concentration of the substrate increases, the rate also increases, and it starts plateauing the more you get closer to the maximum velocity that is possible for this reaction. Okay, the maximum rate that is possible for this reaction. So Km is the concentration. Km, as you can see here, is the concentration of the substrate when you have half of Vmax. The rate is half of Vmax. The concentration at that point is Km. Let's see what the concentration versus time graph usually looks like. As you can see, over time, the concentration of the substrate decreases and the concentration of the product increases, right? The concentration of the enzyme decreases and then increases, and the concentration of the enzyme substrate complex increases and then decreases as time goes on, as you can see in this. Okay, so now that we have seen both the graphs, let's see the possible answers. So the answers in this case are A and D, and let's see why that is. So when the substrate concentration is very less than Km, right, the reaction follows first order reaction. And as you know, first order reactions are such that the rate is linearly proportional to the concentration of the substrate. So that is what you see in the first graph. So as the substrate concentration increases, so does the rate of the reaction. And since that is the case, option B and C are not correct. And for option D, like you saw in the graph in the previous slide, the concentration of the substrate decreases as the time goes on. So option D is also correct, and so is option A. So I hope that was easy for you to understand. That is all for this question. Thank you so much for listening.